asset, what is a liability. Assets are all your your dental equipment, your computers. Liabilities are something that you owe to your material vendors, bills that you owe for lab. So that's something that we will cover in detail. Metrics. So importance of metrics. This is something where we need to track what is it that we are trying to achieve. At Sabka Dentist, we have close to 150 metrics that we follow. Each department, whether it's operations, supply chain, accounts, marketing, each and every metric is tracked to try and understand that what is the the actual performance versus what we had planned or budgeted at the start of the year. Moving on, budgeting is something that is essential. It's a one-time exercise that usually happens, at the start of the year. April, since we are in April right now, this is the correct time to be budgeting for the entire year that is ahead. What are the projections we have for the next 12 months? What will our P&L look like? What will the balance sheet look like? How much is the cash that we will be making month on month? What will be our cash position as on March when we end the year? Moving on to sources of finance. When a clinic needs to start, you need to understand what are the capex requirements that you need to set up the clinic. What is it that you will need in terms of working capital? What do I mean by working capital? To run the clinic, there are operating expenditures that you incur. Those need to be, that's management of that cash is something that is very important. When you identify that, what is my capex requirement, what is my working capital requirement, you also need to check whether, are you prepared with all those funds? Do you have all those funds already with you, or whether you will be planning to get some debt. Now, debt could be either from friends and family, it could be from banks, it could be from NBFCs. Right? Moving on to cash flow management. So one of the important things that we need to identify is how is our cash moving. So we tend to see that when we have interactions with a lot of our dentists, at interviews, someone who's running a clinic or someone who's worked at a clinic before and then wants to join us, a lot of them are just talking about revenue, as to what is the revenue that the clinic has achieved. A lot of them are not actually analyzing what is the cash that they make at the end of the month. What do I mean by that? Revenue is something that is the billed amount. After that, there are certain costs that you incur. When you take all those costs into account, that's when you get a profit. And then after that, you need to check whether you are actually how much cash has come into the bank. So that's another thing that's a very important aspect. Moving on to vendor management. Identifying vendors. So what are the kind of vendors that a dentist usually interacts with? The first is capex vendors. So you need to buy your dental chair, you need to buy your X-ray machines, your autoclaves, and a lot of the other machines that you need to set up the clinic. You need to identify the material vendors. For example, you need to finalize an implant vendor, whether it's consumables, whether it's ortho. The next step is you need to negotiate prices with them, set payment terms with them. So once they raise a bill, and how much time are you actually going to repay them? Whether it's 30 days, 60 days, is there some credit that is possible or not? And also managing relationships with them. So since you're in for the long haul, you're going to be continuing your practice for X number of years. It's very important that you build relationship with these vendors, so that whenever there is some support that you need from them, they're always there for you. Then we move to the financial statements. This is more from the regulatory point of view. So once you complete a year, you need to make sure that you prepare a profit and loss, a cash flow, a balance sheet. This is something that, not only will you require it for your income tax filing, it is also something that is needed so that you can assess how was it that you performed in the entire year. Did you actually go around and make money or not, and how much was that you really made?
Yeah. So, as I just like to interject here. So, as you're seeing the slide, and Pranav has gone through each and every aspect that he'd be covering, as he's an expert with the financial management. I just want all my dental friends here to understand that this could be something that would right now just confuse you completely. But each and every topic will be taken, and will be breaking that down into such smaller and simpler bits that you will find all of this much easier to understand in the coming few slides and webinars. Okay, so
Right.
don't let this bog you down. He's going to explain each and every thing in a better detailing in the coming slides.
Sure. Thank you. So you could also, post your questions in the chat. Is there some concept that you're not understanding? That can be answered by us.
Yeah, keep writing down, and if I require to interject, we'll be asking Pranav in between, slides. So don't feel shy. Just keep writing down your doubts. It could be as silly, but that's what everyone else is thinking, and that would solve a problem of a lot of us dentists here. Thanks,
Right.
Pranav. Yeah.
Yes. So let's start. So first we start off with capital expenditure, which is also known as capex. Now, what is capital expenditure? So capital expenditure is the money you spend to buy, maintain, or improve fixed assets such as buildings, equipments, or instruments that you use over a long life. What does this mean? So this means that, if you were to take it in the context of a clinic, a dental clinic, it is all the expenditure you have upfront when you need to start the clinic to set it up. So what is it that you need to do? You need to buy dental chairs, you need to buy a compressor, you need to buy X-ray machines, you need to buy your hand equipments. So these are things that will be used by you for more than 1 year. So why are we saying it's capital expenditure? Because the life of the asset is more than 1 year. Hence, that's why you're not expensing that off in the first year. You're saying that this is an asset that will be used for more than 1 year. The life of the asset is more than 1 year. So, for example, if you see a dental chair, a dental chair can last for 10 years. So, you pay upfront in the first year, and then you sort of depreciate that over the balance of the 9 years. So, just to sort of give you an example, like you can see on the screen, costs incurred on dental chairs, compressor, X-ray machines, interior decoration. So, when you set up a clinic, all the costs that you incur to pay painters, the cost you incur for electrical wiring, your lighting, your plumbing, you will set up a reception area where you would have a reception desk, you would have seating for patients, you would also have a laptop for yourself inside, you would have a computer for the receptionist as well. All these expenditures are capital in nature. So these are expenditures that would be capitalized. So this is an asset.
Would my Pranav, just to ask, if I buy my clinic, if I buy the space for the clinic, the shop or so, would that also be my capital expense?
Yes. So if you see the first line, it tells you that fixed asset is also a building. So it's a building, it's a shop. If it's a flat that someone is buying and setting up a clinic there, that's also a capital expenditure.
And if I'm renting it, it would not be?
No. So if you're renting it, it's an operating expenditure, OPEX.
Okay.
Right. So this is basically what capital expenditure really means. Like Dr. Zita asked me the difference between capital expenditure and OPEX. Rent is something that is covered in operating expenditure. So what is operating expenditure or OPEX? Operating expenditure is an ongoing cost for running a product, business, or system. So in our case, it's running a business. So dentistry is a service business, right? So we are imparting the dentistry service to the customer. So it's all the costs that you incur on a monthly basis to run your business will be known as operating expenditure. When you then drill down further into operating expenditure, there are certain costs that are fixed and there are certain costs that are variable, which we will cover in the following slides. But what are the examples of operating expenditure? Rent, salaries, material consumption, whatever material you buy, lab, we send our lab work to labs for, say, example, crowns, bridges. All these are operating expenditures that you spend on a monthly basis to run the clinic.
Dr. Nupur here would like to know that does the OPEX include asset and liabilities both?
No, so asset and liability is a different concept here. What we are talking about is expenditure. So when you are actually, classifying an expenditure, assets is all capex. So the slide before.
I suggest let us complete the OPEX first, and we have an entire section where we will explain what is the correlation and relation between assets, liabilities, expenses, and what is the difference on them. So let's just wait for a few slides, and then we'll get back to this question.
Right. Sure. So, like I was saying, OPEX. So, OPEX, operating expenditure, when subtracted from revenue, will provide you the earnings or profit. What does that mean? So, let's take an example with numbers to sort of make it easy to understand. So, if the revenue of the clinic is, say, 10,000 rupees, operating expense is, say, the clinic spends some money on rent, spends some money on salaries, some money on buying materials, or there's some lab cost. All that operating expense, when subtracted from revenue, gives you your earnings. You can see this term called EBITDA in the bracket. What that actually is earnings before interest, depreciation, taxation, and amortization. Don't need to understand that now. I mean, just understanding simple earnings is fine. So, take your revenue minus all your costs, that is operating expenditure, gives you your profit, earnings/profits.
When you are saying revenue, Pranav, I wanted to know that revenue means all the money that I have collected from my patients in that month.
No, so
I don't do my orthodontics. I don't collect if the entire amount is 50,000. I may not collect all 50. I take it monthly.
Yes,
so then you would take 50,000 as my revenue, or the 10,000 I'm taking from the patient, or 5,000 over here.
So yes, I'll explain that. So there is revenue and then there is collection. So the basic fundamental accounting process tells you that you accrue the revenue. So when you are accounting for revenue, you would account the entire 50,000. When you generate a bill, you say, say if it was an ortho bill, so you would say that I have sold ceramic braces at 50,000. So you will generate 50,000 as revenue. You would say that I have received 10,000 from the patient now, and the balance is something that is yet receivable from the patient. So which you will receive over the due course of the next 3 months, 6 months, or whatever is the transaction that you have, or the deal that you give the patient.
So Dr. Rajiv Kumar has a question here. Who's asking, does the revenue also amount to the visiting doctor charges? At this point, let me just interject and let you all know that what you see on screen is a typographic error. Ignore the example. So to answer Dr. Rajiv's question, do you have an answer, Pranav, to that?
Yes. So, in case of Sabka Dentist, we do not have any, charges for consultation, but I understand that a lot of other clinics do charge for consultation. So yes, it would include the revenue amount. So that is revenue because you are
Any amount that a patient pays for any service. Now it could be an X-ray, it could be a visiting doctor, it could be a change of dressing, but irrespective of whatever you bill for, I mean, if you are going to take money from the patient against that bill, it will be considered as revenue.
Dr. Smith here also wants to ask, many times a patient do not revisit you. So shouldn't we just see the collection?
That's a good question. So there are two different aspects of business, and I like to talk business here because we're talking finances, right? So you have revenue and you have collection. Collection is the payment that you get against a bill, whereas revenue is a bill that you've generated. When you generate a bill, you are telling the patient that he is liable to pay you an X amount. So let's assume that you are charging 20,000 rupees for an orthodontic treatment, for which the person is going to come to you 10 times over the next 10 months, and every time he comes, he is going to pay you 2,000 rupees. Thereby, over the entire span of 10 months, 2,000 rupees every month, he is going to give you a total of 20,000. Now, you are going to raise a bill to the patient either on a monthly basis of 2,000 rupees every month, or you are going to raise a single bill at the beginning of the treatment where you say that, listen, you have to pay 20,000 rupees for the entire treatment, and you can take a payment plan which you can pay 2,000 rupees every month, right? So irrespective of what he pays, when you bill somebody for 20,000 rupees upfront, you know that this person over the next 10 months is going to give you a total of 20,000. That goes into your profit and loss statement as revenue. And against that, you will create a person as a person who is going to pay you the same amount over the next 10 months. And that's why you keep revenue and collection as two different line items. Pranav, do you want to put some?
Yeah. So I wouldn't want to explain an accounting entry because that could be confusing. But in simple terms, like Vikram explained, what you're doing is you're talking about raising the 20,000 bill now. What you do is you take that I have collected 2,000 and 18,000 rupees is balanced against Mr. X. Now, whenever that person comes and keeps giving you 2,000, that 18,000 rupees will keep reducing.
Okay.
So that's how you will be able to also keep a track that, Mr. X was supposed to pay me 20,000. He's paid me 10 now. He still owes me 10. So not only does it help you in accounting, it also helps you in keeping a track of how much is it that you need to collect from X patient.
Okay. Thank you, Smith. Dr. Smith. Yeah, Pranav. So you could continue to the next step.
Yes. So this slide talks about the operating expenditure. Like I told you in the start of explaining it, there are two kinds of operating expenditure. One is a fixed cost, one is a variable cost. Now let's move on to explaining what is the difference between the two. So fixed costs or indirect, however you term it. So fixed cost or indirect costs or overheads, these are expenses that are time related. These are not revenue related. So what do I mean by time related? Rents are paid every month, right? So whenever you get into a leave and license agreement with a landlord, you agree to pay them every month on a fixed date, saying that every month on the 7th, I will be paying you an X amount as rent. Now, this is a time barred transaction that you're doing. So every month you are going to pay the landlord rent. Similarly, when you hire an employee, say you hire an assistant or a receptionist or an associate dentist, you give them an appointment letter. Now, what does the appointment letter say? That I will be paying you an X amount of salary on the first or the second of every month. So these costs are something that are going to be paid on a recurring basis. Also, what is a fixed cost and why are we not calling it a variable cost? These are costs that you will have to pay irrespective of you generating any revenue. So, when you take a place on rent, you have got into a contract with the landlord saying that I will be paying you X amount every month. Now, whether you generate 10,000 rupees of revenue, 20,000, 1 lakh, 5 lakhs, that is something that is not going to impact the landlord. So there could be a month where you get no patient. Still, you will have to pay the landlord. So this is a fixed cost that you incur. Similarly, same goes with salary. Another example which is simple to understand is, your utilities. So you have electricity bills, you have telephone bills, you have water bills. Now, these are something that irrespective of whether you generate any business in the month, you will still have to pay this. So this is a fixed cost that the business has to incur on a monthly basis. So, some of the basic costs, like I said, are rent, salaries, utilities, your small petty cash expenses. So, there might be a domestic staff that might be coming to clean your clinic every day. So, that is something that is again fixed. There is a certain amount of stationery that you need to buy every month. Yes, Dr. Smith, again, yeah.
She's just asking if EMIs and BMW is also included in the fixed cost.
Yes. So BMW, I think what you mean is your
biomedical waste.
Yes, yes, you're right. So again, you got into a contract with the biomedical waste person saying that I will be, paying you an X amount for you to come every month. So again, that is a fixed cost. You're right. EMIs again, again, you're right. Again, EMIs also would be classified as fixed cost, but that depends on the loan that you take with the bank. So that is something that is not a clinic level expense. That is something that we classify under business expense and not clinic level. So here what we are trying to show you is all the fixed costs that you will incur to run the clinic. Right. So that's basically fixed cost. Anything that you want to ask me, Dr. Zita, or is it clear?
Yeah, no problem. That's clear.
Okay.
So the reason, just to clarify for, I think, Dr. Paswan, is the reason we are taking the questions, in between is because it would be relevant to that particular slide or topic. And, so at the end, if you would take it, we would have to go back and you may lose the context of what the doctor was asking. So that's the reason we are taking them in between. Okay. And right. Pranav would continue, and just if he requires to repeat, we don't have a constraint that much of time, and we will be continuing the webinar throughout, on the topic of financial management till we cover all the concepts. Yeah.
Sure. So moving on to variable cost. Now, what is variable cost? Variable costs are costs that change as the quantity of the goods or services that a business produces changes. So in our context, the variable cost is dependent on the dental services that we provide. So this cost is going to change as you bill more and more. So for example, if you were to do one RCT, the variable cost will be X. When you were to do 10 RCs, your variable cost is going to be 10X. So it is going to change as you bill more and more, right? What are the variable costs that a dental clinic has to occur? One is, of course, like I just said, material. So, you need to buy material consumables. Second is lab. So, crowns, bridges, prosthetics is something that is again variable. Only when you will bill a crown will you require the service of a lab. And the more number of crowns you bill, the variable cost will change. If you see, the example we're talking about is when you're doing an RCT, there are 3 to 4 kinds of material that you use, right? You'll use a file, you'll use a gutta percha, you use filling material, not really the lab too much when it's an RC. But if it's a crown, then of course you will be sending the impression to the lab as well to get a crown. So this is something that will change with the revenue. So it's dependent on how much revenue you bill. That will change the material cost, the lab cost. Another variable cost is the consultant cost. So not all services would be undertaken by the resident dentist of a clinic. There are some services where they would call outside consultants. For example, MDS is for orthodontics, or whether it's implantology. So in that case, there is, in the context of a private dentist, there is a revenue, there is a sharing that they have. So that is a cost that you would incur and pay the consulting dentist. So the difference between variable and fixed is clearly that only when you will bill revenue will you incur variable cost, right? Because that's only when you will use material or will you use a lab. But even if the revenue is zero, you will still have to incur fixed costs.
So in that case, Pranav, in a fixed cost, so would you suggest that we rent out a clinic if you have to, or would you prefer to buy a clinic so that fixed cost is, a one-time,
So, Doc, that was something that would, vary based on each dentist, on their financial situation, where is the clinic located. So if I was to give you an example, setting up a clinic in Mumbai and buying a shop would, cost you anything between 2 to 3 crores. Now, that is a decision that the dentist needs to make, whether they want to put all that money upfront and buy the place, hence avoid paying rent, or whether they would want to first open the clinic, see how the practice grows, see how much revenue are they generating, what is their traction, and then make a decision to go ahead and buy a clinic, buy a property to run the clinic. Again, okay. So when you buy a property, that would be capex, so that would not be a fixed cost or a variable cost.
Okay, and we have a few questions here that would the biomedical waste then be a semi-variable, or is it fixed?
So depending.
So my understanding of biomedical waste is that they typically charge you on a monthly basis, and it's an annual fee that you need to pay. And since you are paying annually, you don't have the option of not paying them in case you're not doing business, and hence it's a typical example of a fixed cost. The second question that Dr.
Pankaj is asking.
Pankaj has asked, which is, are consultant charges variable cost? Pretty much variable cost. Again, we will come to that point on how we can convert variable cost to fixed cost and other way around. So some costs are dynamic in nature. So example, a variable, since we are at consultant costs, under normal circumstances, if you have an arrangement of a revenue share with a consultant, which typically works on a 50-50 or a 70-30 in most private practices, the 70% or the 30% or the 50% that you pay to your consultant is completely variable, because it is in proportion of revenue that you generate. And if you don't generate any revenue, you typically don't pay the consultant. And hence it's a variable cost. But yeah, there is a possibility that this variable cost can be converted to a fixed cost by getting a consultant on the rolls or on a retainer. For example, if you're doing a lot of root canal treatments and you don't want to spend your clinical time on that, and you'd rather want an endodontist to come and do all the RCTs, you could have an arrangement with the endodontist where you tell him that I will pay you an X amount every month, irrespective of how many RCs I generate. Now what you've done is you've completely created a fixed cost that you will pay X amount to the endodontist irrespective of how many RCs you generate. So even if you generate 0 RCs, you still pay that amount. And if you generate 100 RCs, you still pay that amount. So whether you want to keep this amount as a fixed or variable is dependent on what kind of contract you sign with the consultant or what kind of arrangement you have with the consultant. The other question was with regards to
Maintenance of chair by
maintenance
Dr.
of
Bem.
the chair. So now that's a classic example of something that is incidental cost, right? I mean, you could categorize it as a variable. It's not a consistent variable. So the maintenance may not come because you're using the chair. It could also come because you're not using the chair. So ideally, what we do at Sabka Dentist is that we have a plan called SD Tech, which is which our franchisees as well as our clinics subscribe to, and it's an annual package for the whole year, and it kind of covers all the assets that are there in the clinic, thereby converted again an incident or a variable cost to a fixed cost. So you know that you are going to be charged, let's say 20,000 rupees for the entire year. You apportion it across 12 months, and you know that you would be charged approximately 1,800 rupees every month. And thereby you can plan for the same. So it's a good example of an incidental expense. Another few set of questions that came were with relating to the question that Dr. Zita asked about whether you should buy a place or should you rent it. Now, it's a very very subjective call, and it depends from people to people. Now, the way I look at it, being a business owner, is that when a person is planning to start a clinic, he has to take care of a few considerations. And we have an entire section on starting a new dental clinic coming up in the next few days, which is a part of the SD Managed platform, where we talk about how to buy, how to rent, how to plan, floor space planning, logistics planning, hiring, everything. But just to give a short answer to this, if you are in a place where you are expecting, so you need to take a trade-off between appreciation you will get on the value of the asset over the years, the rent of the asset if you don't buy it, and the value at which you will buy it. Which means that let's assume that you are going to buy a property where you are going to start a clinic in Mumbai. You will be spending at least 1 crore to a few 2 crores to buy that property. Now, on 2 crores, even at a 5% rate of interest at the basic FD, you will get approximately
10 lakhs.
10 lakhs every year as interest. Now, this 10 lakh translates into around 80,000 rupees per month as interest. You will get a property at a rent of 50,000 rupees in a good place in Mumbai. Now, you have to decide, do you want to park those 2 crores today, or do you want to take a place on rent and pay only 50,000 rupees? Having said that, if you believe that the property is going to appreciate over the next 4 years and that 2 crore property will become 3 crores, then it makes sense. But if it's not going to appreciate, which is very common in a place like Mumbai, where property prices have not been appreciating since the last 10 years, personally, I would not buy a property. But then it's absolutely person dependent, and it's dependent on what kind of money you have and where you want to park that money. Okay, Pranav.
So Dr. Samudra has asked that if we rent a clinic, they normally take a refundable deposit. So where do you put that, in fixed or variable?
So that is actually an asset. Refundable deposit. What does that mean? You've paid a deposit which you will once you leave that premise, you will get it back. So it's not really a cost, right? It's something that you will get back. So that's why it's not a fixed or a variable cost. It's a current asset.
We will come to that when we talk about the balance sheet. Yes. But right now, just remember that it's an asset. It's something that is there in your possession. Only thing is, it is lying with the landlord, and he's going to pay you back when you give the property back.
Another thing that
I hope.
I think Dr. Anuruddha Hinge has mentioned, rather than buying a property, can we look for other, having another branch with that money? So what he's trying to say is that, rather than parking all your money into buying one property, you should think of expanding and having multiple branches. So yes, I think that's also a good idea. I mean, if you see that there is traction and you start doing well, and you generate money from one clinic, it's smart to try and create another clinic and make money from that as well.
We have an entire section on growth and expansion in the days to come, where we talk about how do you increase the number of practices that you own, and how do you grow it into a larger than life business. So we'll talk about it in the section about growth whenever we reach that point. Yeah.
Sure. So moving on, we move on to the gross margin or gross profit. Now, what does this mean? So gross margin or gross profit expresses the difference between revenue and cost of goods sold. A gross margin is expressed as a percentage by dividing with revenue. Let me explain this. So if we were to say that an RCT costs is the selling price of an RCT is 5,000 rupees, and so that's the revenue that you will generate. Now, what is cost of goods sold? What are all the materials that you will use to perform that RCT? Whether it's files, whether it's impression, filling material, and the other materials. If that, say, was going to cost you 1,000 rupees for a single RCT, what you're looking at is that 5,000 is your revenue, 1,000 rupees is your cost, so 4,000 rupees is your gross margin. Now, so 4,000 rupees divided by 5,000 rupees is what is the gross margin percentage. So if you see the second part, it shows you for a dental clinic, it is calculated as the selling price of the treatment. So like I said, selling price of the RCT less the cost of materials used for the treatment. Here we've given an example in case of a crown, the cost of the luting cement, what is the lab going to charge us, what is the lab cost. It does not include indirect fixed costs like office expenses, rent. So those are fixed costs. What we are trying to identify is that if I was to do one RC, how much money do I make on that RC after removing the material cost on that RC, whether that's material cost or lab cost. Now, this is something that is very important also to understand how you will price your services. So, one of the key things that we at Sabka Dentist do is we have close to 250 services that we offer our patients. Trying to understand how to price them is a very complex decision. We use a lot of variables. We use material cost. We use competitive pricing. We use past data of at what price has the RCT sold. What is the the price at which the customer is going to upgrade themselves from a PFM to a zirconia. So it's a lot of variables. We actually have an entire analytics team that looks at all these variables and then decides how it is that we want to price the service. So when you go about starting your clinic, when you go about deciding what is the cost that you want to, what is the selling price that you want to charge the customer for an X service, make sure that you take into account all the costs that it takes to render that service. And once you do the revenue minus the cost, that tells you the gross margin. So, an example, if you look, the last dental clinic will, in terms of gross margins, if a dental clinic does 100 cleanings at 1 lakh rupees each, and if they do 4 implants at 25,000 rupees each, where do you think the clinic will make more money in terms of gross margin? It's actually when they do 100 cleanings. Why is that? Because the cost to do a cleaning for a dentist is very minimal. There is, except for using water and using polishing paste, there's not much that you're using. Whereas for an implant, you need to use there'll be the implant cost, there'll be consultant cost, you'll have to call an implantologist to place it. So when you're selling it at 25,000, there will be an X amount of cost that you will have to incur to sell that implant to the patient.
So now at this point, let me interject and just so that we are clear on how you can be calculating gross margins easily. So I'm sure everybody must be thinking, like one question that came with from Dr. Smith, who said, how do I determine the cost of an RCT? Because sometimes I don't exactly have a track of how many times I use files. So the idea should be that if you want great financial management, you have to remove as many variables as possible from the system. So what do you mean variables? Things that are outside of your control. So what we do at Sabka Dentist is that we have laid out processes, standard operating procedures, which do not allow a person or limit a person to use products for X number of times. So in case of files, because we were discussing our root canal treatments, we have a policy that we do not use, and Dr. Zita can help me on this, that we use one rotary file in 6 canals, right?
Yes. So what we do is we maintain it with a booklet, and we keep boxes for each file system. So a doctor specifically knows how many times it is used. Even though a consultant walks in or someone else walks into her clinic, she would still know how many times that particular file has been used.
But we have a policy that irrespective of what the status of that file is, we will dispose that file the minute it reaches 6 RCs or 7 canals?
Yeah, 7.
Yeah, so you need to determine what that amount is. Now, sometimes I've seen whenever I have recommended this to doctors saying that that's, what if the file is usable? Am I not wasting it? But sometimes you are okay to accept that loss just so that you have more transparency in your financial management, and you can be very clear on measuring it. And hence it is important that you have very clear protocol. So at Sabka Dentist, whether it is our clinics or our franchisee clinics, each one of them follows a very standard protocol that allows us to identify and clearly define the cost of one RC. So let's say, Dr. Mehul is saying, how do we calculate one RC cost? So what do you use? You would use
first a burr.
You would use a burr. You would use a few files, and then you would fill it up with gutta percha and some filling material,
and
right?
Paper points, yeah.
And then a paper point, right? So you take the average number of cones you use of paper point per canal. You use the average number of cones of GP per canal, and you use you divide one burr into,
and your EDTA and your seal. You divide that tube into the number of root canals
that you've done in the past. And when you measure that, so at Sabka Dentist, we have an analytical platform that measures usage of these. And from historical data, we come up to a standard saying that one tube of, let's say, RC Help produces X number of canals. One tube of EDTA produces X number of canals. One tube of composite can help you in making X number of fillings. And then we divide and get us the cost. Same it is possible with private practitioners, but there has to be a starting point. And that starting point should, if you don't have data, start with an assumption and validate that assumption as you go forward. But you need to have a gross margin calculation done. Does that answer most of your questions? I guess so, yeah. Okay, Pranav, you can continue.
So that's what we spoke about. Gross margin, a very essential thing that each dentist needs to understand. So again, a lot of doctors were asking about assets and liabilities. We here are just going to be showing you what the definition and what is an asset and liability. I will also be showing you on an Excel file how assets and liabilities are disclosed. So assets are something that the company owns or a private dentist owns. What are these? Cash, inventory. So all your materials that you hold at the month end is an asset. If you've purchased a shop, then that would also be an asset. All the dental equipment that you own in the clinic, if there's a car, that also is an asset. So, like I said, dental equipment, cash, dental material, receivables. So, we spoke about one patient where, an ortho patient, we bill him for 20,000 and he's paid us 2,000. 18,000 is still receivable from the patient. So that is an asset. Similarly, when we spoke about rental deposit, so we have paid, for example, the landlord, say 1 lakh rupees as rental deposit. That, since it's a refundable rental deposit, it will come back to us. So what are we going to do? We are going to classify that as an asset. It will lie in your books as an asset. When you decide to, say, close the clinic or move the clinic somewhere, if you decide to do that, you would take that back from the landlord. So it's not expensed off, it's an asset. When we move to liabilities include everything that the company owes to others. So what do you owe to others? So vendor bills, bank loans. Now, what would come under vendor bills? So you would have material vendor bills. You need to pay the labs. They would generate a bill every month for you. There are electricity bills. There are telephone bills, internet bills, even the loan. So if, for example, someone takes a loan, then every month you need to pay EMI. So that as well is a liability. New Ceramco, someone's asking staff salaries, phone bills. Yes, exactly. Those are also liabilities. So you're right. So this is a brief definition of assets and liabilities. Moving on. Anything else, Dr. Zita?
No, Pranav, you can go ahead and we'll take up questions at a stretch. So they don't want a complete break. So in between slides, yeah.
Sure. Moving on. So this is something that is very, very important, and we give this a lot of weightage in Sabka Dentist. So what is a metric? So metric is a quantifiable measure that is used to track and assess the status of a business. What does this mean? What this means is that whether the clinic is doing well or not has to be tracked. Or the only thing that when I have interacted with dentists, I've heard them say that we are doing 1 lakh or we're doing 2 lakhs of monthly business. So the business is good. That is not the only metric that should be followed by a dental clinic.
That I have heard of, the general metrics that I have heard about when I talk to doctors about their practice, they tend to tell me, when I'm telling how's practice, he says, "Oh, practice is great. I have a 3 lakh rupee practice, or I have a 2 lakh rupee practice, I have a 4 lakh rupee practice." Or they say, "Oh, I have an OPD of 25 people, I have an OPD of 30 people." So generally, what you are tracking or what you are measuring the practice or the value of your clinic is just by measuring your revenue and measuring the number of people who are walking in. And both of it are not metrics that are actually bottom line metrics, right? Which Pranav will explain now. Yeah.
So there are, so we at Sabka Dentist follow a lot of metrics. We actually have a team that only looks at metrics and publishes them to different departments. So we've just listed down 3 metrics here, which I think should be the starting point for any dental clinic to follow. And then they should graduate to looking at other metrics as well. So the first metric, if you look at, is the patient conversion metric. So like Vikram just mentioned, a lot of doctors say that our OPD practice, we get 30 patients a month, we get 50 patients a month. What we need to identify from that is that, so say I have got 40 patients in the month, that's what my line says. Total number of patients that visited in the month of April were 40. We need to identify how many of those patients were billed, how many patients actually paid us money. So in this example here, I have taken that 20 patients paid us money. So what does that tell me? That out of the 40 patients, 20 paid me money, 20 did not. So my patient conversion is 50%. It is important to track this number to understand whether are you improving month on month. So if this is your metric in April, so for example, you're saying that in April, 1st April to 30th April, I got 40 patients. I billed 20, so my conversion is 50%. In May, you need to make sure that you're trying to improve on this metric.
So you
Dr.
just to interject over here, I mean,
Yeah.
there is a very well-known fact in business that you have, you can only improve things that you can measure, right? And hence these metrics are important. So one of the questions that came here from Dr. Anirudh is that I have a 60% conversion. How do I increase it? Now, how can you improve the probability of a person to commit to treatment, right? You have to improve your skills in convincing that person that the treatment is important for that person. Now, while how you will improve is in the sections that come forward. As I said, this is a 1 month long program. We have a section on patient expectations. We have a section on how to improve your pitch to the patient, how to make the patient understand that what is the consequence of no treatment in case of critical treatments that you've quoted, and those would help you to increase your conversion. But all those techniques and all those processes can only work if you are measuring your metrics. If you are measuring, then you can measure how good you are and how bad you are and have you improved. And so what we are talking today are only defining the metrics that you need to work on. You need to define what will be the things on which I will measure my performance, and then accordingly improve your performance.
So it's good to see that Dr. Anirudh is actually measuring his conversion. So he knows that his conversion is 60%. So now that you know that it's 60%, at least you identified that that is one area where you can improve. So good to see that.
Yeah, Dr. Vidya here is also asking, would the consultation fee include a patient conversion? Would you include that?
So, we at Sabka Dentist, since we've started, do not charge anything for consultation fee. I would believe that as a practice, it would be better if you would not include it in patient conversion, because, that's not something that the patient is he not committing to a treatment. So you might get a wrong conversion, since everyone is going to pay you consultation fee, you will get a conversion of 100%.
See, every metric has a purpose. The metric of the purpose is to define a target for yourself, right? A target of improvement. How do I improve my patient communication skills? How do I improve my patient communication platforms? How do I improve my sales pitch? Okay. So your patient conversion metric is going to help you define whether you are improving or not improving. Now, if you choose to include a metric that is going to show you a higher conversion percentage without your involvement in it, which is the case with consultation fee, the purpose of the metric will get defeated. Right. So hence it is important that I would typically not involve. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks.
So moving on, the second metric that we have defined here is the average revenue per patient. Now, what does this mean? So, let's take an example that, a clinic generates 2 lakhs of revenue in the month of April. And that 2 lakhs has come from 40 patients. So 40 billed patients have given us 2 lakhs. Now, each patient would have taken a different service and would have generated a different bill value. So, it could be that one of the 40 patients could have just done a cleaning, one of them could have done an ortho, one could have taken an implant service, and all the rates and the rates that you charge the customer are going to be different for each service. But if you were to take the average revenue per patient, so what we did is we divided 2 lakhs by 40, that tells you 5,000 rupees is the average revenue per patient. So this is an average. Like I said, maybe you sold an ortho treatment for 30,000, you sold a cleaning for 1,000 rupees, right? So you generated 40 bills or for 40 patients, and that generated 2 lakhs, but the average revenue per patient is 5,000 rupees. Now, again, this metric is something that you should be working on to track every month so that you can improve on this. So how would you improve on this? If you see that out of this 2 lakhs, you have sold one braces treatment, which was a metal braces treatment. Say the price for an example is 30,000 rupees. Your attempt next month should be try and sell upgrading that patient. So, for example, a patient X took a metal braces. You need to try next month to sell a ceramic braces to someone. What is that going to do? If the ceramic braces costs 40,000 versus a metal braces costs 30,000, your revenue has gone up by 10,000. So that means that your ARPP will also go up. So this metric will help you understand how can I upsell and sell better value services to my patient and generate more revenue.
Yeah, so Dr. Atul is asking, is it average ticket size? It is average ticket size, sir. So there are variants of the same metric. You could call it average ticket size. You could call it average revenue per patient. The reason why we track it is we want to see what is the kind of practice that we are doing month on month. Are people's propensity to take up better services at Sabka Dentist improving? So if people are committing to larger treatments at Sabka Dentist, we want to believe that we are doing a good job. If our ability to draw in patients for more important treatments, more elective, expensive treatments is increasing, which means that our doctors are doing a good job. And if that is not improving month on month, there is room for improvement. And can we improve the technology that we use? Can we improve the learnings? Can we improve more trainings? That is what we try to do. So this metric actually tries to tell you, are you improving in your ability to sell better services every month?
The doctor here from New Saramco Dental wanted to ask that if a patient is paid 50% advance and comes a few times in the month and may not pay in between, then will not that affect the conversion rate? Will that be wrongly calculated, I think?
That is why in the beginning of the entire conversation, we talked about the difference between collections and revenue. Right? We need not track corrections. Collections will come. I mean, it's just a matter of time that you'll get the money. If you do the treatment right, if you keep the patient happy, if you don't compromise on the treatment, and if you make sure that to the best of your ability that the prognosis is fine, the patient is going to stay with you, and the bill or the revenue will stay intact. Now, whether you get the money today, tomorrow, or after 6 months, it doesn't matter. It was billed on the day when the patient committed to the treatment, and hence it will be considered in the month in which the patient committed the treatment.
Right. Another question we have is, does different services generated revenue can also be correlated with metrics? So I think what you're trying to say is you want to check what are the different kind of services that you are billing and where you can improve.
I think we could take this question later, Pranav.
Right.
Yeah.
The third metric that I have listed down is the repeat patient metric. So revenue generated from repeat patients divided by the total revenue generated. Now, what do I mean by this? So, for example, when you are in practice for 1 year, 2 years, or maybe 5 years, you have treated a lot of patients across those years. It is important to track whether the patients that you treated in the first year of your business, have they come back to you next year or not? What this tells you is that this helps you identifying that what is the lifetime value of that patient. So what do we actually mean by a repeat patient is that, for example, if a patient has done a cleaning service in April 2018 and he decides to come back 6 months later for another cleaning service, say in October 2018, that is a repeat patient. So he was happy with the service you provided in April, and he has come back again to you in October. So this helps you, and it tells you that out of the revenue that you've generated in the month, some part of it is coming to you from patients that have been treated earlier as well.
So a good question that has come up from Dr. Smith is that if there is a referred patient, which is basically a female patient gets the husband along with her in the next visit, and the husband becomes a patient of the clinic, is that also considered in repeat patient? The answer to that is no. It will go under another metric, and which is referred patient percentage, right? So you also want to track how many people referred you to others. The more the better. So if you have a high percentage and if it's increasing every month, you are measuring something that you want to improve. And you can also set targets for yourself, that while the referral rate this month is 10%, I want to improve to 10.5% next month. And for that, if required, I will contact all my patients and I tell them how my services are differentiated, why you should go to a dental checkup, etc., etc. So each metric sets for you a line of action points which are required to improve that metric, right? So whether it is patient conversion, whether it is average revenue per patient, whether it is repeat patient, or it is the other 150 matrices that we use. We use more than 150 matrices at Sabka Dentist to determine efficacy of doctors, efficiency of doctors, efficiency of clinics, performance of clinics. And these 150 matrices have related action points for each of our team members. And so it's important. Remember, you can only improve things that you measure. These matrices are measures of your performance. So that only push you to perform better, right? So Pranav, I think what we should do is, can you give a brief about what you're going to do in the next session? And we take a break for today. As I said, and what was written in the presentation was that this is an ongoing series. So it's like a continuing thing. Wherever we'll stop, we'll continue from the same point on the next session.
Yes.
And this way, we will go extremely slow. We've worked with, for the last 10 years, with dentists in India. We've worked and trained more than 2,500 dentists. And what we've realized is that the only way we can look and we can get trained on subjects that lie outside the purview of core dentistry is by going as slow as possible. So we don't want to rush into it. So those who feel that the course is extremely slow, please bear with us. We want to make sure that it kind of helps everybody, and the webinar is actionable rather than just something that you attend because of the lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to answer a few questions before we take a pause? Or?
Yeah,
Right.
and
So I think,
and I just want to tell everyone who's asking, you're asking for the next, when would it be, and also whether we would be sharing things. So we're just going to share a survey before we end, where you need to put in your details. Please put in your email IDs and numbers. So we will be sending you all a few sheets about it, and also we will be updating you about our next session on that phone number. So we'll be sharing that right away after we complete, just in 5-10 minutes. So that would answer the questions here. So put in your details, right, so that we can share. No, we'll be sharing a survey right now in some time. So put in your details there.
right. So, I'll just give you a brief of what we're going to do next time. So, you are aware. So, next thing we move to is the budgeting process. What we are going to talk about is, how do you project and forecast how your entire year of business is going to be, and why it's important to do that at the start of the year. We're also going to be talking about how do you make a profit and loss statement. So we'll actually be showing you an Excel sheet and going line by line, trying to explain how is it that you would be putting in your fixed costs, your variable costs, to understand what is the clinic level profitability, what is the marketing, if there is any marketing cost, where will you allocate the marketing cost? So all these things is something that we will explain next month. Also, how is the cash flow moving? So like we mentioned, you don't collect all the money upfront. Some patients pay you in parts. So how will you account for that? How will you make sure that you have enough cash to run your business? How will you manage cash? So all these things will be covered in the next session that we will be taking soon. So that those details, like Dr. Zita said, will be reaching you in a few days.
1 minute. Yeah.
Doctors, one thing I wanted to tell you all is that, see, this whole platform of SD Manage, Sabka Dentist is doing that in order to make dentistry successful, right? And we want to make sure that dentistry is looked upon as a great profession, as a great business, and a great platform for people to build careers in the future. And one of the primary reasons why it's looked at with a little bit of distrust is because we've not been able to manage finances correctly. We've not been able to make it economically very successful for our peers, and which is something that we are here to change. So please, my request is that spread the word for SD Manage. It's a free webinar series. We want more doctors to attend. We want more doctors to learn how to grow practices. So it would be helpful to us in our quest of making dentistry successful if you are able to share your views on this webinar to others, and also keep attending the webinar so that you are able to complete the entire course.
Yeah. So doctors, there are 2 surveys put on the screen. One is the doctor details for the webinar. It has your name, mobile number, and your email ID. If you share it on that, we can, and your location, and one more detail, and you can share it on that so that we can update you about our next webinar also, and send you a few details about today's webinar.